Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to the Falcoholic Lives Falcons vs. Chiefs Week 3 post-game show. Quite an eventful night tonight for the Falcons as well. Didn't exactly go to plan, but, they did look competitive. And honestly, we're going to talk about it, obviously, but this Falcons team probably should have beat the Chiefs, or at least should have had an opportunity at the 1-yard line to beat the Chiefs. But definitely some miscues, definitely some things that didn't go great. But this team did not get blown off the field by the Kansas City Chiefs. They weathered some injuries. They fought hard. I'm more annoyed than upset, I guess, is how I would say it. But welcome in, first of all, my co-host for the post-game show. He is Alan Strk, at Alan Strk on Twitter. Alan, welcome back. How you doing?
Kevin, you said that perfectly. Annoyed. I think that's, maybe agitated is another way to describe it. But yeah, I think that's because there's no moral victories. I know things have been rough the last 5-6 years, but it's still like this team's on a level now where I think they're good enough where there's no moral victories. They either win or lose. But all things considered, very fun, competitive game. But man, so many storylines coming out of this. It's going to be hard to talk about all 90 minutes, hour, whoever we do, but let's do it.
Yeah, we're going to get into it. And we also have, helping us out today, with the elusive appearance, we have Corey Woodruff joining us. Corey, welcome back to the show. Always fun to get you on. How you doing tonight?
I am doing well. I feel like I just watched the movie Rocky. That's like the biggest takeaway is like we didn't win, but we went the distance. Yep. And hopefully the sequels are more like Creed and not like Rocky 2 through 5. So
yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. Yeah.
The rest went full Vegas tonight.
Yes. Yeah, it was frustrating to say the least. They did try. It looked like the refs were like, okay, we definitely messed up there. Let's give you some free calls. But I don't want free calls. I want the right call. I want the right call to be made so the Falcons have that opportunity at the 1-yard line, because it was going to be tough to get back to that 1-yard line. They'd barely gotten there all game. So, the last drive, I could just feel it. The Falcons didn't have the juice on that last drive. It was not much was going well. Yeah, they were getting bailed out by the refs over and over again, but it was not going well. I kind of could see that end to the drive coming. Unfortunate there, but we got a lot to get to real quick before I forget. Let me bring you a real quick word from our sponsor, BetOnline. Folks, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all things football this year. If you had bet on the Falcons to cover the spread, I think you would have just missed it, because I think it ended up going down to -3 in this one. No. So, a tough beat there. If you'd bet on it weeks ago, when it was 6.5, before the Falcons beat the Eagles, then you probably would have made some money. But, tough break there for the Falcons and for bettors. But no matter what you guys want to bet on, BetOnline's got every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. And if you think you know your stuff, you can get in on BetOnline's new $200,000 mega contest. They also have a pick 5 games against the spread contest every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of that $200K. When the game's over, you can head on over to BetOnline's online casino, get in on that game of blackjack, poker. They got 150 different online slots games. So what are you waiting for, folks? Head to that website today, betonline.ag, to get in on the action, and make sure to use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV to get in on the action there. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right. So a lot of emotions. I think where I want to start, not the DPI, not that stuff, because I've seen this on the internet, and I want to get the temperature of the room here first, because I feel very convicted about this. I still do. And Corey, you're our guest, so I'll let you get the first crack. What did you think the 4th and 5 decision in the red zone, inside? What did you think about the decision to go for it on that 4th down?
It's tough. I think that one of the things with Zac Robinson that I think is just kind of organically kind of built into young play callers is kind of a tendency to overthink and a tendency to kind of overact and try to outsmart instead of just kind of eating the bread. Like, you want to put the garnish on, you want to kind of be the chef, but you got to be the baker, right? So I think in that situation, the short yardage was, I think he just tried way too hard to catch them off guard instead of just kind of doing the most obvious thing, which I think would have just been run Tyler Algier up the gut again. And again, I think it could have worked. I think it could have been stopped, and we're wondering where was the creativity, right? So you know, it's execution. That's the thing with play calling. It's like the same thing with the Eagles last week. The reason they lost the game, like it's all about if you execute it well, we're not worried about it. If you don't execute it, we're questioning the decision in the first place. So, you know, it's like I thought that Algier got the first down, but you know, this was just kind of a wacky game officiating wise. But you know, I think that it's like half and half. I think half of it was the execution. Like, I don't hate the play call with how dynamic Bijan is, because normally I think he makes that play. And I think Tyler Algier missed a block on Nick Bolton that kind of helped, you know, stuff everything down. But, you know, I think that they could have done something a little more, you know, basic, that probably would have had a little bit of a higher probability in terms of just the general schematics of what it means to just get a couple of inches. But I think overall, like, you know, Zac Robinson's this is his third game. I think he's done a perfectly fine job. Like, this is not Kyle Shanahan 2016 or anything, but like for calling 3 games, I think he's been pretty commendable. You know, there's things he needs to work on, things that I think he'll continue to improve on. But, you know, one play is not a game. And, you know, I think that like we're not worried about it if it works. So I think that trying to look too much into the player their way is, you know, I think that I might have called something differently, but, you know, I don't work for an NFL team, so you know I don't. Maybe you know you just never know.
Yeah, definitely a tough situation. Especially you look at the formation, like you know it's going to be tough to run in that situation. Like it's just that's how it goes. But obviously the play call didn't work, so we were going to talk about it. But I'm curious, Alan, what you think about that play call, that situation.
I think they were kind of just shook by the offensive line game over power. I think the Eagles game definitely affected them a bit, because if you remember the 4th down call, they tried running strip to go to Bijan, and you know Chauncey Gardner-Johnson made that play. Ultimately, I just think the Falcons lost the game. They got dominated in the trenches on both sides of the ball. Like, we could talk about the penalties, we talk about play calling, but she's owned them up front, and it is disappointing because the Falcons have invested a lot in the trenches on both sides of the ball, and they just didn't deliver when it mattered most. And look, the 4th down play call, it does fall on Tyler Algier. But then again, he's not a natural fullback. I thought maybe they could have ran some more misdirection. Like maybe had Algier as like the lead back, and then maybe get Bijan in motion and kind of run like a jet sweep. They've seen them do that before. Maybe that was with obviously Arthur Smith. But I think they could have just ran some more misdirection, because I just don't think there was any confidence they could hold up against the Chiefs up front in that moment. So play call was disappointing, but I do like the fact that they're at least using Robinson and Algier together, although they did it on the touchdown, but it really didn't work. It was just more of Bijan just running through contact to get in the end zone, because I think they did it on that touchdown, if you remember, but nobody blocked. Maybe it was Nick Bolton or another defensive player, but it's just those little details. I do think it falls a little bit more on the players, but look, it all kind of culminates, but it's just, I just look at the trenches and what the Chiefs are averaging, 6 yards a carry, and the Falcons really didn't do much on the ground other than a few delayed runs to Algier. But I thought Bijan played fantastic, but he just didn't get much space to run the ball. So I put it more on them falling short of the trenches than anything else tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty rough, right? I mean, obviously when, you know, you're working from losing 2 starting offensive linemen, that's going to be tough. You know, there's not really a good way to get around that. You know, I think it was mostly just like, I don't know. Like, I think that the 2 guys that came in like Ryan Newsel and Storm Norton, I think they like actually played well. It's just like the whole offense kind of seemed disjointed after the fact. And that's not surprising when you lose your starting center, right? I mean, the starting center handles so many responsibilities, so many things. It's natural for stuff to take a while, but that, you know, that delay really cost his team. You know, it cost them points before the half. Like, you know, they gave the ball right back to the Chiefs. I mean, that wasn't great. Like, you know, so many like things went wrong for this Falcons team, and I think all of it kind of started, unfortunately, with the offensive line injuries. But you know, you look at that particular play, and, you know, I think it's tough to get the yardage on that play. But again, you look at it like if Tyler Algier makes the block the way he's supposed to, they probably do get the first down. You can't have an unblocked linebacker just crashing in on Bijan there in that situation. So, you know, but Tyler Algier's not a fullback, you know, and that's the thing. If you're not going to carry a fullback, should you really be having your other running back play fullback when he doesn't know how to play fullback? That's definitely a question that we're gonna that we'll probably have to answer, because it seems like they want to use 2 running backs. But yeah,
because this team's naturally 11 personnel most of the time. That's what Sean McVay ran a lot with the Rams, where Zac Robinson's from. So I don't know if this team's built to run heavy sets. Like I know obviously Charlie Warner's going to play and they'll run 12 or 22, but it's just I think some people have mentioned maybe they could have spread it out on fourth down and maybe attack them a different way. But then again, it's just like, how do you trust the offensive line? But and this is where I give Zac Robinson huge credit. I thought he did a good job on that final drive, just getting the ball out quicker, whether it was the London or Pitts, he had gone out. So they were getting the ball quicker. It's just, oh man, sometimes the Spags defense is too good. So you just got to appreciate greatness. I know people want into it, and I said sometimes that greatness gets calls, which we'll surely talk about, but it's just those little moments of executions where, we talked about week one against the Steelers, attention to detail, and just those key moments they inhabit.
Yeah, it's rough. Definitely a tough situation. And again, it's like, you didn't get the calls. You didn't get any of the calls, really. I mean, they started to try to do some makeup calls at the end, but like those weren't anywhere near as impactful as the one they should have made, So
to be fair, I thought, except the McDuffie one, those are all understandable. I think there was one hand to the face on Pitts. That horse collar was brutal. Yeah. I think it was just the McDuffie one, which was really
exactly.
How do you call that McDuffie? But then you got Cook literally bear hugging Pitts. It's just that pitch is just gonna be framed in my mind. We all got frames on our walls right now. Just put that on a frame. Like
yeah. No, that one is it's gonna loom large, and people will be talking about it. I mean, obviously when the broadcast is like talking about it to that extent, and like they kind of like ignored most of the crap that was going on for like most of the game, and then kind of just like we're like, oh yeah, actually that one was like really bad. It's like yeah it was for sure, but
you want to go down the list of penalties that should be called.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of missed calls, and that's just what you have to do. You have to beat the officials, and you have to beat the Chiefs. I mean, we know this, and it's not like crazy. Like a lot of people, I think, overblow it a little bit, but I mean, we definitely saw it in this game to some extent. And I mean, you hate it that like in your home stadium you can't even get calls, right? I mean, it's like the refs are tripping over themselves to help the Chiefs in the Falcons stadium. But we don't get no respect. It is what it is. But yeah, I'm curious also, like, there was another call in this game, another fourth down situation that I think it was clear as day. Like, personally, I think it was clear as day that it was the right call for Morris to go for it on that 4th and 6 or whatever it was, where they were, like, within the 10-yard line or something like that. And I think that was clearly the right call. I think it was, like, the analytics, I think it was like a 5% win probability difference to go for it there. So, I mean, I think it was clear as day that it's the right call, but I've seen a lot of, like, second guessing on the timeline about, like, oh, if the Falcons had just kicked that field goal, then they could have won with a field goal at the end. There's so many, like, layers to why I think that's a flawed line of thinking, but I'm curious, Alan, what do you think about that decision to go for it, like, earlier in the game? Obviously, it shouldn't have been necessary because of the DPI that wasn't called, but, it was necessary, unfortunately.
Adnan, I'll kick it to you right after I'm done. I think the mystique of Mahomes kind of forces teams to go for it. You talk like you can't sell for 3 against Mahomes. I think that kind of played a factor into it because it's just, you look at the Chiefs, and even though Chiefs offense, they had their own blunders on the red zone. Like they stagnated quite a bit. It was good to see them target London there. It's just they didn't execute. I hate to keep saying that, but I didn't mind the aggressiveness because look, it worked against the Eagles. I think who converted? There was like a 4th and 3 they went for last Monday night. I think maybe it was to Mooney or McLeod.
Ray McLeod.
Ray McLeod, thank you. Yeah. So, look, this team's gonna be aggressive, and I think you'd rather have an aggressive team than someone that's gonna be complacent. So I didn't mind it, but of course, hindsight 2020, people are gonna look back on and be like, "Oh, this should get the field goal." But look, man, it's the Chiefs. If Mahomes is in a situation where he's down with 2 minutes left, like the Falcons defense held up admirably, but let's not kid ourselves. It's not like they played that great of a game, and you kind of bet on the Chiefs there, especially the way Rashee Rice is playing. But Adnan, what do you think with the 4th down call?
The one where they were down 5 on the DPI on Kyle Pitts. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was. I guess you can sort of debate it when it's hindsight, when it's 2020. But I think in the moment, obviously, you go for it. Like that reminds me of. Remember how we absolutely destroyed Dan Quinn and everyone destroyed Dan Quinn back in 2015 against the San Francisco 49ers? it was a very similar situation where we were down 5, I think, on the 2-yard line, except it was like, a little less time. And Dan Quinn kicked the field goal, and that actually caused their win probability. Kicking the field goal caused their win probability to go down, as opposed to had they gotten stuffed on 4th down there. But yeah, no, I think absolutely you go for it there on 4th down. And I get it. People are saying, oh, but the defense got the ball back. You would have been down 2 and you could have kicked the field goal. I feel like the Chiefs would have completely approached their drive very differently if they were up only 2 versus up 5. I feel like they would have opened up the playbook a little more. They wouldn't have been as conservative. But yeah, I think it was an obvious decision to go for it, and it should have paid off. But that there was a very clear defensive pass interference that everyone but the refs saw. But when you face the Chiefs, you kind of have to expect some of those calls to not go your way.
Yeah, it does happen. And Corey, I'm curious what you think about the decision on the previous drive. Do you feel the same way, that it was a good decision to try to go for it and get the first down there?
I think it is because of the team they were playing. I think if they were playing a lesser team, you take the points and trust your defense. But like, Patrick Mahomes might be the best quarterback of all time in that situation where he's down and he's got to drive up the field, and it's just what he does. Like, I mean, he's generational. He may go down as like the best quarterback ever. So it's just like, I don't care who's blocking for him, who he has to throw to. It's like he finds a way to get it done. So I think that you play aggressive. And I think the other team, the other thing is like, it's week 3. This is not the playoffs. Like, a win or a loss is, it's what it is at this point. And I think that you play a little bit more aggressive when you have much more room to roam in, not just after, the minutes that you have in a game, but in the rest of the season you have to go, just to see what your team can do in that type of situation. Because I still think that this coaching staff is learning what this team is. Like, this is still it's September. Like, this is the 3rd week where you're still in a kind of molding and shaping phase where the team is trying to find its identity and discover what it can do. And I think that in those situations, you want to go for it on 4th when you can, because you want to see what are we going to be able to do in December when we're in the same situation, and get a little bit of reps and, get a little bit of that growth. And I would have loved to have gotten the win tonight. That would have been delightful. But, I think that I don't fault them particularly with the opponent that they had in being aggressive in any situation. Like, again, I might have kicked and just hoped that we might have gotten a stop, but you're looking at Mahomes getting a start at the 30, and it's just tough. So I think that you're kind of doomed if you do, doomed and if you don't in that type of situation.
Yeah, it's easy to second guess, obviously, after we knew that the Falcons were going to stop them defensively, but I don't think anyone felt good about that happening prior to that. And then we had some donations. We had Mad Tom K with $5. Thank you, Mad. I think we just answered your question, Mad. Curious about your opinions on the 4th and 5 call. I agree with going for it since you don't expect a 3 and out in case he was marching all game. Yeah, I think we did answer that question, Mad. But yeah, I mean, I agree with that as well. Like, I don't think I think you're probably correct in saying that's your best chance at the end zone on that drive. The best chance to get the lead. So I think you go for it there 10 times out of 10. And analytics would agree as well. And, I think obviously it would have been nice, if they didn't have to do that, because they probably should have got the DPI call. But, I'm sure we'll talk about that too. We got George Costanza with the $2. He says, I feel like a dad right now. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Why is it every game with the Chiefs you can point to the officiating and say that's the problem? That's still it. Why can't we have one game without it front and center? Yeah, I mean, that was definitely a thing for the Chiefs last week, against the Bengals. The officiating was front and center in that game, and it was tough. And we got OTP Athletic Club with the $5. Thank you. It says, the play call wasn't perfect, but I need Tyler to make that block. On to Hate Week Part 1. Yeah, not a great play. We also had Furball with $2 saying, thoughts on the outside run on 4th and inches. Don't love it, but again, like, if you watch that play, like, the Chiefs dominated the front, like, that entire play. So, like, I think if the Falcons had tried to run up the middle, maybe there was a chance to just make something happen, but there was so much push on that play, even from the inside. Like, I'm not sure that anything they would have run would have worked better. So with the play that they ran, at least there was a chance that if, like, Algier actually makes that block, maybe Bijan can, like, scurry over there But look, it is what it is. Like, you're down 2 starting offensive linemen. It's not a good situation. You really just need to not be in that situation, like where the game is coming down to a 4th and inches. And, maybe the best situation would have been to like try to spread them out and run like a real play and not like do like some kind of goal line type of play like that. Because maybe you just think you can make something happen there. But yeah, I think trying to beat the Chiefs like straight up, hat on hat, in that like 11-on-11 goal line play, probably not going to work for you when you're down 2 starting offensive linemen most of the time. So, I think the Falcons in this game, like they really got their ass kicked up front, and I don't think they're used to that happening offensively. They're probably going to have to figure out a way to get around that because, like, I don't know how realistic it is that we're getting Dahlman or McGarry back next week or in the next 2 weeks or however long it takes. But they're going to have to find a way to work around that, and I do think they have a decent chance to do that. But the biggest problem for me is definitely the offense stays the problem. Like, I mean, the defense, like, again, we've said this every single week. The defense goes out there, plays their ass off, gives the Falcons an opportunity, and like 2 out of 3 games now, the Falcons haven't capitalized. Now this week, we can definitely point to that DPI, which, just in case people are joining us now, like, yes, that was an obvious DPI. It was ridiculous that it wasn't called. And the Falcons should have had a 1st and goal from the 1 and an opportunity to score there. Now, maybe, the Chiefs do something else after that point. Maybe they go down and kick a field goal. Maybe something else happens. Who the hell knows? But the Falcons should have had a chance, 1st and goal from the 1, to make something happen there. And that's a shame that we didn't get to see that, because I think audiences got robbed of another great finish in this game that could have been. But I do want to shout out the defense, because, like, look, this was not a perfect game. It was a little bit ugly defensively at times. The Chiefs were just going up and down the field, but it was pretty slow, and the Falcons defense, time after time, just kind of came up clutch when they had to, kept the game close all game long, and really gave, again, the offense an opportunity to capitalize. So, Adnan, I'll let you take the first shot at this one. What do you think about the defense's play so far? I know we were kind of questioning, how big of a test were the Steelers actually. Then the Eagles, they didn't have A.J. Brown, so we're like, okay, this is going to be our first chance to see this defense against a capable passing attack. And what do you think? What do you think about the performance?
I'm very satisfied with the performance of the defense. Like, don't get me wrong, they didn't go out there, they weren't the Legion of Boom Seahawks out there, but you are facing the Chiefs. You are facing the best quarterback of this generation, and easily, arguably one of, I don't even think it's arguable, one of the 5 best quarterbacks of all time right now. And the defense went out there, and there were moments where I thought that the game was going to get out of hand, where the Chiefs sort of realized that they can run on this defense. They won up front in the trenches. The pass rush wasn't getting home, but then the defense just sort of didn't allow that. Like, they kept the game manageable. The Chiefs never went up by more than 1 score. Now, there was some fortune there in Harrison Butker missing that extra point to keep it at an 8-point game. But, nonetheless, the Chiefs, they got down near the goal line on 1 drive. The Falcons defense stuffed them on 2 run plays and then forced an incompletion. Jesse Bates had a really impressive pass breakup on Travis Kelce on a 3rd down. They had that really crucial 3-and-out forced after that DPI, no call on the 4th down, which gave the offense its chance. And, overall, the defense gave up 22 points. It wasn't pretty. In fact, it was actually very ugly at times. But, the Chiefs' offense is still the Chiefs' offense. They're not what we, saw a few years ago, and they are a bit more limited with Isaiah Pacheco's injury. But, the defense did exactly what they were supposed to. And this is not the unit where, the defense isn't the unit that has all the top 10 picks, right? The defense has gone out there every single game, and they have not lost you a single one of these games, whereas I can argue that the offense, straight up lost you both of these games. So far, I have to, tip my cap to Jimmy Lake. I have to tip my cap to Raheem Morris, the defensive coach. for the game plans they've put in, because this defense, you know, I was expecting a very heavy regression from last year, and so far, so far that regression hasn't really come about, and the defense has done enough to be 3-0 at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Alan, what do you think about the play of the defense so far?
I think it's a bit lopsided. I think the secondary is completely overachieved. The linebacker play was significantly better tonight than it was against the Eagles, and the defensive line's been a colossal disappointment. I think we're not giving enough attention to the defensive line. Other than Onyemata, maybe 2 stops, Eddie Goldman had a really nice push on the 3rd down, and Ebiketie had this explosive get off the force 1 pressure. Defensive line was non-existent. Jarrett nowhere to be seen. Judon either still recovered from injury, but he looks like someone that I'm not going to make harsh takes after 3 games, but he's just not been effective. And everyone else in that rotation just hasn't made plays. Chiefs are averaging like at least 6 yards a carry, it felt at times, and it seemed like they were getting whatever they want on the ground. So I can't fully commend this defense, because I think the defensive line, considering all the resources they put into it, it's just not been good enough, especially Onyemata, when Onyemata was playing at a Pro Bowl level last year.
Yeah.
But no, secondary, you got to be thrilled about it, man. Justin Simmons, oh, man.
Yeah.
The interception was a thing of beauty, but there was a play, that 3rd down stop. Worthy was running this motion where, I don't know, like, I've never seen Robert Woods do this, where like you go inside and then you go back outside, and I think they were trying to because they were running a lot of rub route concepts, and that's how they scored the touchdown with Juju Smith-Schuster on the mesh concept. And Simmons completely read it. So between that and then Bates, once again, Jesse Bates, he just loves going against the best league and just breaking up passes. He did it against Devontae Smith last week, did it against Kelsey this week. Like, the safety play, and then Terrell's anticipating plays, and hey, UCF legend Mike Hughes, man. I'm Kevin. You're going to talk about Mike Hughes. I'm not going to say anything else about Mike Hughes. You got to give Mike Hughes some praise. I think the secondary has been terrific, and Kate Nellis did his thing, and Trey Anderson held up better, but I don't think we should forget about the D-line. I think the D-line's been a colossal disappointment so far, and I think if the Falcons are really going to beat the best teams in the league, they got to get more from their D-line.
Yeah. I think Onyemata has been the biggest disappointment so far. Seems like he's still trying to work his way back. He had that injury late last year, but yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I agree with what you said. I think we need to get more from that interior D line, and they've looked good at times, but not consistent enough. We need them to start dominating here, like they should be. Yeah, Corey, what do you think about the play of the defense through 3 games?
I think it's a work in progress. I think that it's the side of the ball I was more worried about going into the season, because it's really hard to get a defense going, especially in the first year of a new regime. Like, I just remember how just awful the defense was during Arthur Smith's first year. The defense during Dan Quinn's first year was not very good. Like, I don't really remember the Mike Smith's first year defense. I guess it was good enough to go to the playoffs, but
John Abraham, everyone else.
That's true. Yes. It was John Abraham and then Thomas Deku and William Moore trying to figure it out. Yeah, good times. Yeah, it's, they have playmakers. And I think the secondary, particularly Mike Hughes, has been the biggest shock to me this season. Like, I figured the safeties would play well, and they have. I figured AJ Terrell would give up a few things at times, but still show he's a pretty dang good cornerback. That's happened. But I've been really encouraged by Mike Hughes. I think that he has outlived any expectation anyone has had for him. I think the linebacker play has been fine. I think the run defense isn't very good right now. And I think that will hopefully coalesce as the season goes on. I think that there is a very hard kind of like middle on where I am with the defensive front, where it's like they're not playing great right now, but I think that's probably going to be the unit that takes the longest to figure it out. Just because, Raheem Morris kind of hinted before the season that they were just going to have to figure it out there, that they had depth and they had options, but, you don't really have like A-plus player that can just like ignite everybody around them. And I think that they're doing a lot of rotations. I think that they're keeping that from the Nielsen days. And I'm kind of curious if that maybe slows a little bit and they're a little bit more, cautious about how often they're rotating guys in and out, because I think that a defensive line, like any line, is about momentum. and it's about feeding off the energy. And I think that what Ryan Nielsen was so good at last year was kind of picking and spotting when he was going to rotate those guys in and out, depending on how well they were playing. And I think right now it just still feels like they don't really have that much of a grasp on mainly personnel they didn't bring in. Like their two biggest investments on the defensive line this offseason, besides Matthew Judon, haven't played yet this year. And then one of them is on injured reserve. So it's just like they're not getting anything from that rookie class right now. They're really just going with kind of a ragtag team of veterans who some of them have played at a high level before, but they've not all played at a high level together. So it's like, I think they can make splash plays and they can pop every now and again, but they're not there yet. But I think that at the same time, I'll give them a little bit of a break for the quality of offensive line that they faced, particularly in the past 2 weeks, getting Philly, getting Kansas City. The interior of Kansas City is maybe like top 3 in the NFL. I know the tackles are a little bit more suspect, but it's what it is. And I think that they're just going to have to get better. It's just like we'll probably talk about it, but the next 3 games are very important for the season and the defensive line will have to do more. But the biggest thing is like, I'm just used to a Falcons not having a pass rush, or it's kind of like, if they started rushing the passer consistently, I'd be worried my TV was breaking. But I just want to see the run game get better. That's the one thing where I'm kind of like, I didn't like that Carson Steele was getting what he was getting on the ground, even though, I'm sure he's young and he's hungry, but it's just like, maybe Nate Landman's injury kind of hurts that, but yeah. I want to see them at least tighten that up because I think that they have more potential to do that sooner.
I do just want to quickly combine something that you both said on your points of one, and I agree that the defensive line, especially the interior of the defensive line, which I thought was going to be one of the main strengths of this defense based on what they were doing in training camp, hasn't been doing enough, and we saw that today. But also regarding what Corey was saying with the draft class, the Falcons took Rook Orororo very high in the second round. And not only did they take him very high, they traded up for him. They essentially used a second and a third round pick for him. And you're telling me that, even with the defensive line not doing what they're supposed to, he can't even dress as an active on game days. Because 3 games in, he has been fully inactive. It's kind of disappointing regarding the draft class because, just let's take Michael Penix out of it completely. Like, I don't care about that first round pick right now, but the entire draft class, there is not a single contributor 3 games in outside of J.D. Bertrand playing some special team snaps. It almost feels like they fully punted away this draft class, and I feel like it's at least a little concerning that Rook can't even, it is a healthy inactive game in and game out when second round picks should be, day one contributors, like right from the start. You're telling me he can't even get into the rotation?
It's disappointing. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. Like, I mean, you guys know if you listen to the draft shows, like, I was a fan of Rook, but I was not a fan of trading multiple, multiple day 2 picks to get him. I didn't think he was that type of player, but, them going for Rook was like, okay, I guess you love his traits. I mean, he has fantastic traits, but yeah, I was like, well, maybe he'll play on early downs or something, but he's going to take some time to learn how to pass rush. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, they have so many veterans in here on the defensive line. It's like, there's not really a path to him playing immediately. So, the question is, like, I mean, obviously, like, you look at it from the long-term view, it's like, okay, we're probably saying goodbye to Onyemata or Jarrett next year. Probably Onyemata, right? Given how important Jarrett is to this team. But, like, I mean, I guess,
play
like,
over Street.
Yeah,
and maybe
I mean, probably.
I will give credit. Taquan Grant did make one really nice play tonight. Yeah, I know I've been slandering the D-line. Taquan Graham did do his thing. But you look at, like, Street, I know maybe they see some traits in, but, like, I still understand why they made Zach Harrison gain all the weight when they have so much on the interior. Like, I think Zach Harrison could have provided more to the edge. He showed promise. So it's just so many guys. I think Eddie Goldman deserves to play. And I think he has a purpose there. But guys like Street and Graham, I think one of them, you can't tell me Oroho can't get more snaps than one of them.
I guess we'll see. I mean, I think sooner or later we're going to see Ororo out there. I hope it's sooner rather than later. But yeah, I mean, I definitely understand being disappointed in this draft class. I think the one guy that was probably going to play like a significant role was, Braylon Trice, and unfortunately, he's out for the season. So, but yeah, I mean, honestly, like the loss of Nate Landman, I think, is such a huge thing for this team, because now they can't really play 3 linebacker sets at all. Like they're kind of like, if they want to go like heavy, they just have to add more defensive linemen, because like J.D. Bertrand just isn't ready to play. Like they have not played him like a single defensive snap. He's too small. He's like 230 pounds. He needs to gain weight. It's going to take some time for him to do that. He's playing special teams. He's doing a decent job there, but yeah, it's concerning when you're not getting any play from your rookies. Like they could have really used these guys. Some guy, like, I don't know. It is frustrating. I totally understand that, Adnan. Totally understand that.
You want some Mike Hughes.
Yeah, but where's my? Yeah, it's time for the. Okay, we're gonna glaze up Mike Hughes here. Okay, hold on. Yeah.
That pass breakup, like, because we've seen Xavier Worthy what he's done so far. Like his speed terrifies defenses. That for Mike Hughes to just hold up there, wow. And Mike then Hughes, he made a nice play.
He's fast. Like he ran a fast 40. He's a fast player. I think it's kind of wild. Like, I mean, I definitely touched on this when we signed Hughes like years ago, and I was like, oh, maybe they're gonna have him play outside because that's where he was playing so well with the Chiefs. Nope, made him play inside. He looked terrible. And then this year, finally, they're like, oh, we're gonna have him play outside. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. Well, in that case, he's probably gonna be fine. Because guess what? Mike Hughes as an outside corner actually looks pretty good. And that's been played out now over several weeks. Now, not necessarily the hardest competition in week 1 and week 2, but this week, Rice, Worthy, it didn't really matter. Like, I mean, Kelsey beat him for 1, but he had to run all the way across the formation to try to kill Kelsey. So that's not really his fault. That's just like, the design of the play.
Mahomes throw. Oof.
Yeah. So like, yeah, I mean, Mike Hughes, I think like the biggest concern on the defense, or one of the biggest concerns, was like, oh, who's going to be corner 2? And it seems like Mike Hughes corner 2 is totally fine. Maybe even better than fine. Maybe one of the strengths of the defense, because he's a great run defender. I think he's played the pass well. He just looks so much more confident as an outside corner. I mean, I don't know what it is. It's just like he's just an outside corner. There it is. Book it. Mail it in, write it down in pen, whatever you want. He's an outside corner. He needs to play outside corner, and then he's fine. So
he's been the most pleasant surprise. And Jerry Gray, like I wasn't familiar with your game. Like I owe you an apology for this one, because I remember in camp, Mike Hughes, there was no competition, and we talked about it on the post-training camp show every single day. No, Clark Phillips, he's not running with the ones. Like nobody else is running with the ones except for Mike Hughes. Like whenever Clark Phillips was running with the ones, it was when he was replacing AJ Terrell. Mike Hughes was never leaving the field, and I was confused. I'm like, is Hughes really good enough to where there's no competition? And I mean, so far, yes. Like the answer is emphatic yes. He's been one of the better players on this defense, and I've had no complaints about Mike Hughes so far. Like, yeah, this secondary has been stout. Like it has been excellent. Jesse Bates makes his plays. Justin Simmons picked off Mahomes again. AJ Terrell has been good. And Mike Hughes has just sort of solidified that as the cornerback too. So yeah, he deserves his flowers 3 games in, that's for sure.
Yeah. I think we were kind of like, I think I was waiting like until after this game to like really start to praise him, because I was like, all right, like he got to go against Van Jefferson week 1, and he got to go against like, Jahan Dotson, I guess, was probably out there most of the time. And like he played them really well. I think he'd allowed like 3 catches for 7 yards or something on like 8 targets. But this week he got to go up against the Kansas City Chiefs receivers and came away with almost 2 picks. I think maybe almost 3 picks. Damn close a couple times. So big shout out to Mike Hughes for getting that, for going out there and playing well and representing the UCF well. Let me get to a couple more of these donations here. We got Adrian Russ with the $2. Thank you, Adrian. Appreciate you. Says, defense bailing us out time and time again. Really proud of that unit. Also feel optimistic considering how we played overall against the defending champs. I like the aggression to win the game. but I think they should take the points. Our defense had been playing so well. Yeah, Adrian, I think we kind of covered that. I know this question came in maybe before we got to that. But yeah, I mean, I think the analytics and like the gut would probably tell you that you're not going to get a better chance at a touchdown than that one. So I think that's why they went for it. I think it was like a 5% win probability boost to go for it, which is huge. Like, I know that might not sound like a lot, but to have one play make that big of a difference, that's a pretty huge thing. So they did make the correct call from the analytics standpoint, from, I think, the overall standpoint, even though in hindsight, it's like, oh, well, if they had kicked the field goal, they stopped the Chiefs. Like, they stopped the Chiefs in part because the Chiefs were going out of their 6 and the Chiefs thought they could just kind of kneel the ball out and win. So like like Adnan said, I think, I'm trying to remember who it was, but like if the Falcons kick that field goal, the Chiefs play that very differently. They know they can't afford to give the Falcons the ball back because they're going to just have to kick a field goal to win. It's very different than the Falcons needing a touchdown. So the game changes completely after that point. So I think if we're going to play hypotheticals and say they kicked a field goal, like the whole game after that point changes. You can't assume that the Falcons get a 3 and out and all this stuff in that scenario because the whole game changes. So
and just to that point, it's also why I don't want to completely, throw this game as a, they fully lost because of that no call DPI. Like, that no call DPI was very bad. Like, I'm not defending the refs at all here, but I can't say that singular play lost the game because, yeah, the Chiefs play that fully differently. That they would be down at 1 or 3 points because the Falcons would go for the 2, and you just don't know what's going to happen after that. Like, maybe they go down the field and punch it into the end zone themselves.
Yeah.
So obviously the Falcons weren't helped by that, but I don't think it's fair to sit here and say, yeah, they fully lost because of the refs.
Yeah, it definitely didn't help. And it sucks that we don't get to have that play, like to have them get the opportunity from the 1. But yeah, it is what it is. We can't unfortunately take it back. We can't. We're never gonna find out what would have happened. But it would have been nice, certainly, to have the ball first and goal at the 1 in that situation. We got George Costanza with $2. Thanks, George. Welcome back. Says, I know I was the biggest Kyle Pitts homer, but I think he might be a bust. He's not Kittle. He's not Kelsey. I wonder if his ceiling is Brett Selleck. Only Pitts went 4th overall, not in the 5th round. Swing and a miss. Never listened to me on draft takes. So it's okay, George. We all liked Pitts,
I would have gone Eric Ebron, but Brent Selleck's hilarious. Like,
yeah,
I could think of 2 opposite players. Like, I'm thinking like a athletic, freak tight end, top 10. Had flashes. Hey, that was a nice route, 50-yard play. Like, yeah. Can we please talk about Bijan Robinson's blitz pickup? Oh,
yes,
my!
Please talk
that
about it.
That might be
please.
my favorite play of the whole season. Just so textbook. Eventually, like, Spags had to get to the point where, okay, we got to run twists because Bijan's just picking up our guys on. Like, eventually, I think Drew Tranquil got in for like a pressure, but Spags was just cooking up in the 3rd quarter, 4th quarter. But man, just last week he got, I think it was the Kobe Dean, just stonewalled him, and then this time Nick Bolton. Nick Bolton's a fantastic linebacker. Just totally perfect execution, and it gives him confidence now. It's like, wow, we could really leave him on the field all 3 downs because he did struggle a bit last year. So, oh man, it just those kind of moments you gotta love, especially for a young running back, because we know the importance of having to pick up blitzes, and we've seen like star running backs, Saquon Barkley in particular, really struggle early on in his career, and he had to be taken off the field in critical situations. So, I think those moments now gives them full confidence. Like, okay, Bijan can play any down, and we're all set.
Yeah, his transformation as a pass blocker, that's, I think, something you can always tell. Like,
he's worked on it. He's worked on it a lot.
It's so, like, not glorious, not sexy, none of those things, right? But the guys that really want to be great know that in order to play on 3rd down, you're going to have to be a good pass blocker. And I think, to his credit, he's absolutely committed to improving that part of his game. And he's made a huge boost in pass protection, and contributed to some really memorable plays and memorable reps, and it's been pretty fantastic so far.
Corey, what you think of it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's tremendous. I mean, first of all, Kyle Pitts is not a bust. I don't know who in the world said that, but no, I'm Team Pitts forever. But no, he's great. I mean, the fact that he's becoming this well-rounded is huge. And it's just like, one night where Steve Spagnuolo kind of limits your reps, like, I mean, that's happened to everybody. So it's just like, I mean, it's huge. I think Bijan's going to have a huge year. Like, I think that's why I'm like much more optimistic about this Falcons team now than I was 3 weeks ago, is just because of, you know, what we have seen that has worked and what we have seen that has improved. And, you know, the Kirk Cousins, you know, I'm sure we're going to talk more about the offense later, but it's just like the ability, I think, because last year Bijan did everything well that you would expect him to do well, but like he wasn't good at blocking and he couldn't really catch much. Like, and I think that really set Arthur Smith's offense back just a little bit, you know, not majorly, but it just clearly showed that he was going through the rookie progressions. But the fact that he has turned blocking into a legitimate asset for a second straight week in prime time, I think is pretty fantastic for where he's going to go this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I think, you know, that we're definitely going to start talking about the offense a little bit, because I know we've spent some time on the defense too. But yeah, I mean, I think Bijan, the team is going to need to lean on him so much, and especially if there's offensive line issues, they're going to have to continue doing it. They're going to have to find some creative ways to do it, right? Like, I mean, they can't just expect to be able to have success pounding outside zone against every team, right? I mean, that was the Arthur Smith strategy. But yeah, I love that he's committed so much to improving his pass rush. That is a huge part of his game, and it's been not pass rush, pass protection, defending the pass rush is what I meant to say. But
hey, he can run block too. That
yeah,
Ray McCloud.
Yeah, that was a hell of a block. He's just committed to the blocking in general, really. We got Corey with the $2, says, proud of this team. This coaching staff is winning me over. Now we just need to beat the Saints. Yeah, beat the Saints and we're all good, right? I mean, honestly, like, going into the season, I think we were all expecting to come out of this stretch 1-2. So they are 1-2. Wasn't exactly the way I expected it to go down. I expected them to, you know, beat Arthur Smith in week 1, and they did not do that. But they did beat the Eagles, which is actually the most important game of all 3 games in terms of like tiebreakers and standings and stuff like that, because it's a conference game. And obviously the playoff implications with the Eagles being a potential playoff team. That head-to-head win could be very significant when the time comes. We'll see. But
no, in the NFC, and that is all that matters. That is,
yeah. These AFC games don't mean shit, Corey. You know, who cares about these AFC games? Yeah.
Exactly.
For getting into those tiebreakers, we've gotten into a bad spot. So, you know, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, they won technically the most important game. Would have been lovely to beat the Chiefs for that. Would have been lovely to beat the Chiefs for that morale boost. But I think, like, I don't think anyone should like hang their head after this one, because again, it's like the defending champs. You gave them everything they could handle. Like, you were marching to potentially win the game at the end. You know, they got away with a call that you're probably pretty pissed off about, right? That you feel like you should have gotten a chance there. Like, you gave the defending champs a game, like a serious game with it, and you had a chance to win it at the end. Couldn't quite get it done, but there's no shame. I think this Falcons team should feel like they could match up and play anyone after how they played the Chiefs and played the Eagles in Philly, which, like, maybe the Eagles aren't the best team in the world. They did beat the Saints. Shout out to the Eagles. Thank you.
Thanks.
And the Bucs also lost, in case folks didn't know. The Bucs got their asses kicked by the Broncos, so, you know, that was a thing that happened today. So the Falcons are still just one game back in the NFC South. So it's all good.
Payton's still owning the Bucs after all these years.
After all these years. Yeah, he never forgot how to do it. But yeah, so I don't think there's any reason for this team to hold their heads in shame after this one, or feel ashamed. I think the takeaway pretty much from everyone will probably be like, oh yeah, this Falcons seems legit. Like, they absolutely gave the Chiefs everything they could handle. They overcame some adversity with the offensive line injuries. They had a chance to win this game at the end. Probably got a little bit robbed, you know, in terms of that call. But I think you feel pretty good that the Falcons have shown that they can hang with 2 likely playoff teams so far. Which I think that was one of the big things last year, was like this team, outside of beating like the Packers in week 2, which was like kind of showed to be an aberration for both Atlanta and the Packers. They got their asses kicked every time they went against a team that was any good.
They beat Houston.
They did beat Houston. That was a thing. Unfortunately, that was the only time.
The best game of Desmond Ridder's career.
Yeah.
That was Ridder's finest hour.
Yes.
Don't look at any of the stuff that happened after.
If you just check that game, then it's all good.
My-
Your best.
Mike Conti's still getting roasted for that terrible tweet that he put up after that game. The apology should be as loud as the disrespect about Desmond Ridder. And then he just crashed and burned after that.
At least he didn't delete it. The guy stood 10 toes high.
Man, I'm really glad I didn't spend like half the season trying to tell people that I thought Ridder wasn't playing that bad outside of the interceptions, and then it just
that's still
glad I didn't do that.
Well, I can't believe I can't believe that was a conversation though. Oh, if you take away the interceptions,
you just take away the worst plays.
I saw that argument unironically online, and I'm like, what are we doing here?
It's because copium is delicious in October. It's wonderful.
It is. Well, it's like it's either that or admit that like you have no chance, you know. And I don't think a lot of people I don't blame people for not wanting to admit that. Like
I gotta sleep at night.
It's like I'm trying to like make this a little bit better.
I was personally admitting that, but you know,
you were admitting it in training camp. Yeah, I have a picture.
School.
I have photo evidence of that. I believe the caption was Desmond Mitter. But yeah,
I don't think I coined that nickname, but I could be wrong.
Maybe I'm not sure. I don't think you coined it, but you definitely owned it with that.
He was called a lot worse.
He was definitely called a lot worse by me at one point. You know, in a tweet.
That bad.
Yeah, no. But yes, you know, thankfully, you know, Desmond Ridder no longer in Atlanta. That was a quick turnaround. Now the Falcons have maybe 2 quarterbacks worth their salt, so that's nice. We see the rest of these donations here. We got Rise Up RXNs. What's up, buddy? He says, I think it's a he. Sorry, non-gendered name. $4.99 donation. Thank you so much. Says, leaving the game, the Drew Dahlman injury killed us. Bijan inside runs were questionable. Hated the 4th down play at the end. Yeah, it was a tough situation. I think I think they could have survived the McGarry thing because I think Storm is actually a pretty good swing tackle. And like he showed last year that he was okay when he had to come in. But I think losing like both, and then like also like Drew Dahlman's probably like underrated. Like losing your center is just so big, like for the timing of the offense and all kinds of stuff. Like it's pretty rough. So yeah, I think losing both of those guys was really, really tough to overcome, and they almost did. To their credit, they almost did.
Losing Dahlman is. I know that Dahlman has a bad rap, and I know that he's been sort of a whipping boy among the fan base over the past couple of years. And, you know, to his credit, he's cleaned up the snaps. But that was a crucial loss. Like, no disrespect to Ryan Newsel, but Drew Dahlman is literally statistically one of the, I think, 2 or 3 best centers in the NFL when it comes to run blocking. And Caleb McGarry, for all of his struggles as a pass protector, and you know they're not even that great of struggles as they were a few years ago. He's really progressed very well as a pass protector, but you know he's also one of the best tackles in the NFL when it comes to run blocking. And yeah, to lose both of them, I'm not surprised that the run game kind of shut down and started getting stonewalled afterwards. And I'm not surprised that they went with so many dink and dunk passes just to try and mitigate that, because no disrespect to Ryan Newsel, but this team really needs Drew Dahlman to be healthy, and it is a damn shame that he got hurt before they go into this string of divisional games.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be helpful. Like if we don't know anything about the injuries to Dahlman and McGarry, other than that they couldn't come back into the game, which obviously is concerning.
Strk made a comment during the press conference where he kind of alluded that he's looking forward to working with Ryan this week. Maybe that's precautionary, but I don't think either of those guys next week, just given how they looked.
Probably
and the Saints are missing a couple of linemen too. Like they lost McCoy to what looked like a bad injury today. I think Ruiz got hurt at one point. I don't remember if he came back or not, but yeah, both teams are kind of banged up and coming off of defeats going into that big clash at the Superdome next week.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Trevor Penning has some karma coming his way for that Darius Slay thing today. That was
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I sure hope so. Yeah, so I think like this is a good time to play the Saints because we've now got 3 weeks of tape. Like I think honestly, like credit to Clint Kubiak, like that offense took the NFL by surprise completely. they were able to do good things and all this stuff. I think it's kind of been figured out. The Eagles basically figured it out. And I think they showed like, oh yeah, just crowd the line of scrimmage, put pressure on their offensive line a little bit, and Carr crumbles under pressure. We all know this. Like, and I think the Eagles gave you a blueprint for how to take on that Saints offense. So I think it'll be a little bit harder for them. And the same thing is going to happen, I think, with like the Panthers. Like, Andy Dalton comes in, the Panthers offense is completely different. Obviously, they take the Raiders completely by surprise. But like by the time the Falcons play the Panthers in 3 weeks, there's going to be 3 weeks of tape on that Panthers offense with Andy Dalton. So it's like people, I think fans kind of underrate that. Like, it's really hard to make a game plan for an offense you haven't seen. Like, you haven't seen the Panthers with Andy Dalton. I know everyone talks about like, oh, these guys are starting a rookie quarterback. Like, you should beat him. It's like, well, no one knows what this offense is going to look like. The Packers with Malik Willis is a great example of that, right? Like, they just crafted this completely different offense around Malik Willis that's kind of been working out great. So also shout out to Malik Willis. I'm wondering, like, it's been like 3 years, but is my like Malik Willis QB1 in that class take? Like, is that finally going to come true after all these years? My Malik Willis QB1 take is going to come true. It's, I'm going to be vindicated at long last for that take. I know I was getting like blasted for it last year when he looked absolutely terrible as the Titans backup, but that quarterback class is really bad. So, it wouldn't take a lot to become QB1. So
Brock Purdy's still QB1 by considerable margin.
Yeah, he is. But, out of the guys that were expected to be QB1, because anyone that told you Brock Purdy was QB1 going into that draft was lying. They were lying to you that no one had him as QB1. So I don't. No one serious did. But shout out to. Brock Purdy's been doing a good job. But looking a little bit mortal certainly over the last couple of weeks. But all right, we got 2 more donations here. We got Corey with the $2. Unrelated Corey to Corey Woodruff, different Corey.
Yeah, I don't know how you spent.
Unrelated. Yeah.
Damn, Corey, you got money like that? Shit.
Corey's just throwing us, cash. It's like,
crazy.
No, it's okay. Like you like work with us. You don't have to throw money. It's okay, Corey. But yeah. He says, Justin Simmons has been such a huge addition to the team, brings a calming effect through his leadership. The Falcons need that professionalism. Reminds me of a former safety who captained the defense back in 1998. Yeah. Justin Simmons, I think, was like such a huge piece to what, like, because I think like we were like Richie Grant, safety 2, UCF legend, of course, but like, yeah, I was nervous certainly about that. I was nervous. So like, it was certainly nice. It was certainly nice to see the signing of Justin Simmons, so we didn't have to test out Richie Grant there off the rip. And yeah, I think Simmons this week looked like he was like finally starting to get really comfortable in the defense. I don't think it looked like poor before, but I think this week you could really tell he was starting to get comfortable. And I think his like experience against Mahomes was big in this game. And obviously the interception was key. Wish it could have resulted in a win, but I think Justin Simmons did everything he could to help with that. So definitely happy to have Simmons in here. Yeah, what do you guys think? Yeah, what do you think about Simmons so far, Alan?
Well, I raved about him before him, but yeah, I think he just brings us stability, great open field tackler. He helps with the disguises when it comes to coverage. Like, him and Bates are just such savvy players, and I think teams are becoming fearful of throwing deep. Like, I'm very curious to see, because Derek Carr and Baker Mayfield, they could get caught into trying to throw a ball across the middle of the field, and those two safeties could easily capitalize on it. So I just think it adds a lot more possibilities just with them, knowing their high IQ for the game, and just the fact that they have consistent tacklers as well, because we criticized Reggie Grant a lot for his coverage ability, but it was also the missed tackles at times last year that were very frustrating. So he's been a massive addition, and it's just, you see the safety player across the league. I just don't get how he was available in mid-August. Like, for his price tag, like, forget being a contender. Like, NFL is so varied right now. Like, teams are in it. Like, there's no real, true dominant team. So it's just like, I was stunned that a team didn't try to get him earlier.
Yeah, no, it was weird. I agree. Like, it was kind of weird that Simmons was out there so long. I think it was maybe more to do with him. Because I think he was trying to look for the right situation. And it was also hilarious that like he went and visited the Saints. They like rolled out the red carpet for him. And like, took him out to dinner and all this stuff, and he was like, "Oh, thank you," and I'm gonna wait and see. And like, yeah, and then the Falcons like had him in, and he was like, "Yeah, we need to get this done." It was like right after the Judon trade happened. He's like, "Yeah, we need to get this done. I want to go to Atlanta." And so shout out to Justin Simmons for making the right choice and signing with the Falcons, because he's been a lot of fun. And that safety duo is going to be, I think, how they build their entire defense going forward. I think it wasn't necessarily the plan at first, but it certainly has. I think they've been able to evolve the defense, like with those, being able to lean on those two safeties, play that too high shell, play a lot of stuff off of that, work in some disguises, and like Simmons, Simmons isn't the elite back end safety that Jesse Bates is, but like he's capable of playing single high. Like it's not like he's a liability back there. So they can do some shifting and do some different stuff, but definitely really happy with the way that safety room has worked out. That's been a huge boost, I think, to this team so far. And then
I think we gotta talk more about Kirk Cousins and Zac Robinson. Like, we should do deep dives because we haven't really touched much about. But Corey, what do you say?
I've got to run here in just a second.
Oh, okay, yeah. Corey, you want to talk about Cousins
in before I go to bed?
Yeah.
So I think Justin Simmons is like a nice encapsulation for where I think the Falcons are right now. I think that when you look at offense, defense, coaching, there is kind of a green consistency, I think is just it's showing that this is a new regime. It's showing that all of these parts and pieces are still figuring each other out. But I love the buy-in. And I think that's the thing that has made this season go the way that it has, is there is a buy-in from this team, for this coaching staff, for this plan. There is talent that I still feel like has to be utilized better. Obviously, it's early in the season, but I'm really excited for what this team's going to look like in like November and December. I think that there's going to be like a certain point with Kirk Cousins where you start to kind of see like, okay, this is how far we can get with this. But if you look at like, this is like the first of a couple of years of trying to figure out what this new regime is going to be able to achieve. Going toe-to-toe with the Chiefs is nothing to be ashamed of for your third game into a completely new system, even with a veteran quarterback. Like we all have expectations for what we want, of varying degree, but like this game won't matter as much 3 years from now as what trends and what progressions this team is making into being a regular contender, because that's what we haven't had. Like the Falcons have been abysmal for years. Like it's just been, it's been like nothing since 2017, I feel like, where it's just been stop and start and here and there and just like seas and seas and seas of mediocrity. And every now and again, you're the trap game. Great. But it's just like, this feels different, like in a very meaningful way. Like, I don't think that the changes that are happening right now are fluky. Like, I feel like they're actually building onto something to where you can look at the team's deficiencies and you can look at the things that they're not doing well. And they're all very fair to criticize. This is not a juggernaut that's going to beat up everybody, but this feels like a much more cohesive, competitive team than what we saw under Arthur Smith. As much as I liked the Smith teams having a bit of an edge, I think that this is kind of an evolved form of that. So I'm excited for where the season is going. I thought they would start 0-3, so they're already like a game ahead of where I thought they were going to be. So I'll take it. But I'm looking forward to this. Like, and I feel like that for the first time in a while, maybe, because I tweeted this a second ago, like, it's really weird being in a position where we're complaining about a call on a Sunday night game that we feel like we should have won against the Chiefs, as opposed to last year losing to like a 1-win Panthers team in December. So it's just like, there's progress. This is a better team than last year. I feel like this is a regime that seems to be a bit more with the times. That's maybe going to be more capable of doing some cool things that we haven't seen in a long time. So, it's not going to make it easy. It's not going to make any of these games any more winnable, but I'm excited. I'm excited for where this is going. And I think if you want to look at the glass half full, which, I mean, my gosh, everything has been so miserable with the Falcons for like almost a decade. Like, you might as well. And they got nothing to lose at this point. But like, I think things are looking up. Like, I kind of made a Rocky joke at the beginning, and that's kind of how I feel. Like, they may take some difficult punches on the chin here and there, but I think like just look at where this team is trending, and where they'll be in a couple of months. Like, if they're still playing like this in December, then they're probably like a 8-7 win team. But like they're playing at a way right now that I think you can grow on and build on and actually go out and beat teams that, because you don't play Patrick Mahomes every week, thank goodness. But so I'm excited for the future is going. So now I'm going to go to bed because I'm old. So
I feel old as well at this point. This Falcons team I think has aged us all many more years. So thank you, Corey. Appreciate it. Always fun. Appreciate you checking in. Have a great night. Yep. All right, folks. Well, yes, I know, Alan, you're itching to talk about Kirk Cousins and Zac Robinson, and I think that is probably where we should end tonight. But yeah, what do you? It's been an interesting first 3 games, and I will with that comment leave the rest to you to start us off.
I think Cousins throwing with more conviction, which is good, and I think he's making quicker decisions. He's handling pressure better, but the immobility is. That 3rd and 2 was scary.
Ugly. It's ugly.
Matt Ryan's in the CBS studio right now. Matt Ryan gets those 2 yards. Like the fact that he's that fearful, like you gotta have some sort of movement. And there was another 3rd down where the pocket collapsed, and just the way he went to his right was just so awkward. I think that was Jake Matthews ended up getting like a hands to face penalty, so it didn't matter. But everything just seems so clunky when he has to make any sort of movement out of the pocket. Maybe he moved a little bit out of the pocket on the London touchdown, but at some point he has to get comfortable, and I'm willing to give him a few more weeks, but it's really a hindrance, and it's getting to the point, like we could mention this on 4th down. If the Browns as dysfunctional as they are, bringing Jameis Winston for QB sneaks, why not use Penix on QB sneaks? If the Browns swallow their pride with Deshaun Watson, why can't the Falcons swallow their pride with Kirk? Be like, okay, if we so desperate on 4th and inches and we're not really trust our O-line, let's go. Come on, Penix.
Yeah.
Contribute.
No, I mean it's true. It's like you should be able to run a simple quarterback sneak with any quarterback. Like it doesn't require you to be mobile. You just have to fall forward. So it's definitely concerning. I don't know if it would have worked this week. You go back and look at the replay of that play. The Falcons offensive line got caved in on that 4th down, like destroyed on the inside. So if they run a QB sneak, it probably gets absolutely destroyed. It's like, now would the call have still been correct? Maybe, that was still the best call. But it's like, the fact that like if you really don't feel like you can run a quarterback sneak with Cousins, that is a concern. And like that, it's kind of like an extension of what we were saying, I think, after week 1, where it was like, are you really saying like you can't run like any play action or under center with Kirk Cousins because he's so hurt? And like it ended up being not true. Like they actually could do that. They just chose not to for some stupid reason. But like, it is
almost
interesting.
Feels worse.
Like
sorry, week 1.
Go for it.
I know we're rehashing old stuff, but I wasn't here for it. Well, I wasn't on the show for it, but yeah, I'm just gonna say it almost feels worse that like you just punted all of play action in week 1, because I mean Kirk can run it. We saw him run it a week later. Like he didn't miraculously like get that much better over the course of 1 week. It's incremental, but it did make me question Zac Robinson in his first game as a play caller, and so far I've been unimpressed by Zac Robinson as a play caller. Now, in fairness, today I think losing Dahlman and Caleb McGarry was a big handicap. So, I'm going to give him a bit of a pass for today just because the offense was humming before those injuries. Like the 2 touchdowns, big play to Kyle Pitts.
Beautiful pass. Beautiful pass.
That was really encouraging.
That first drive, man, they went out there, they got the ball, and they punched the Chiefs in the face on that first drive. But yeah, I think it's underrated. Like those were 2 big underrated losses that nobody's talking about. Like it's easy to come out here and say, yeah, I know, like Robinson, was terrible with his play call, but I feel like the playbook had to be closed off a little more. And I think that's the reason why there were so many of those dink and dunk passes, so many of those screen passes to Darnell Mooney that we were seeing. the offensive line just was not. It wasn't holding up well enough on those long developing routes, and it definitely wasn't holding up well enough on run plays. So that really hurt the offense as a whole. Now that being said, 4th and inches, wishbone. I hate a jet sweep on 4th and inches. Like I just hate that call, no matter what the scenario is. Like I feel like it's a let's get north to south. Like if your offensive line gets pushed back, your offensive line gets pushed back. Like go out there and don't don't add yardage, uh, because you have inches to get. If you go with a sweep out of the wishbone the way they did to Bijan Robinson, you're just adding more yards you're adding more distance that he has to cover to get to that first down marker. And I just didn't think that was a smart play. I think they got way too cute on that play.
So you rather go out like they did against Philly. Like Philly, they went straight up the gut. Gardner Johnson made a great play. I think McGarry got beat a little bit, but ultimately it was just a power run to the right. But
yes, like if you're gonna, obviously you never want to lose the play, but
yeah,
if you're gonna lose the play, like that was just C.J. Gardner Johnson making a hell of a play right there. Like force the Chiefs to go out there and force someone to make a moment of individual brilliance the way that Gardner Johnson did. And if that happens, you tip your cap. But I don't like shooting yourself in the foot, because I know that play worked on that Bijan Robinson touchdown after the Pitts catch, but it barely worked. Like
Yeah.
it almost
it was
didn't
still
work on that
unblocked.
play either. Like it was such a like I cringed when I saw that play, because it was just Bijan sort of powering in despite getting contacted, and it's like, okay, it's not going to work again. Like the Chiefs aren't going to let you succeed on that again after you just barely succeeded the first time.
Yeah. That was a big problem. Obviously, like the run game, it never really got going in this one. And like honestly, like I think they adjusted well and they were like managed to like still have some drives, but like this team needs the run to work, especially like especially with offensive line injuries, especially against a defense as good as the Chiefs. Like they're just gonna have a hard time straight up like drop back passing. And like yeah, I mean that's what ended up losing this game, right? Was third quarter, like second half, what, one scoring drive in the entire second half. Now they could have had more field goals, but that wouldn't have done it. Like they needed to get touchdowns. So, it's just it's disappointing, to see. But you have two offensive line injuries. This offense feels like it's still very much finding its footing. I don't know if you guys kind of feel the same way, that like we're still kind of like, I think, in the feeling out stage, and it's like frustrating to watch. But I think that the best is yet to come still. But it, like you said, like the first drive of this game was lights out. I think honestly the first half I thought they played pretty well. And this Chiefs defense is good, so it's not like I was expecting them to blow the doors off them or anything.
No, they're legit borderline top 5 unit. I know they don't have as many big stars, but like that secondary hasn't missed a beat since trading with Darius Sneed. Like their secondary knows how to tackle, which is why I think the biggest frustrating thing with Zac Robinson is the bubble screens the Mooney made no sense, especially with McLeod blocking.
Yeah.
Like they really need to get Bijan more involved, because there was a play, I think in the third quarter, which kind of got the offense going. Bijan broke at least one tackle. It was a screen. Lindstrom made a great block, and Bijan ran through contact, gained like 13 yards, and it was just like, okay, they're going. I just think if you're running bubble screens, get to Bijan, get to London. They're the yak guys. And look, I think Mooney and McLeod have been awesome additions. And McLeod in particular, because I don't think anyone was talking about Ray McLeod before the season. And him and Cousins have such a great rapport. And man, Mooney's route running, he smoked McDuffie on the first drive. He had another great route later in the game. It's just, these are high quality additions, and like they bring speed to a team that desperately needed speed. So kudos to the front office for making those moves, and those two guys find a way. I think they're probably the biggest reasons why we're feeling more encouraged about the offense from like a new addition standpoint, because we know what Bijan brings, we know what London brings. Pitts is going to have his moments. Offensive line, when together, they're good enough. But I think Mooney and McLeod raises the ceiling a little bit more, just because you have that big play factor, that explosiveness. Because look, They won't beat the Eagles without Mooney.
Yeah, no, that's true. Like, I think honestly, like we've seen that the receiving core is not the problem. Obviously, could they have been like Rondale Moore would probably be nice to have because I think they really wanted to use Rondale Moore as like the gadget screen guy, that sort of thing. They've kind of been able to like co-opt.
Isn't McLeod at this point though?
Yeah, like they kind of made McLeod that guy, like and that's fine. I think obviously it's nice to it would have been nice to have the depth, but they've kind of overcome that. And like, yeah, I mean, I think they got to figure out a way to make Pitts in London like the primary target hogs and like really target them more. Like, I just feel like you just got to throw the ball to Drake London. Like, it doesn't really matter if he has separation or not. Like, you have to get him the ball. And like Pitts, I think you got to figure out a way to get him more involved, but it feels like we're sort of like 2/3 of the way there with the offense. Like the final third hasn't really gotten there. They're just quite like the third down part of this offense. Like that is the biggest problem right now. Yeah. Like
they're like 28.
They cannot stay on the field. Like they have made, I think they've converted like 6 third downs in 3 games or something.
They're
like
30th in the NFL in third down conversions 3 games in.
Yeah, and they get dominated in time of possession as a result every single week. Like,
and that fucks the defense.
You can't keep doing this. They can't keep getting away with this. Like, yeah, they can't do it. Like, so you got to figure out a way to, and like the quarterback being immobile is a big thing on third down, right? Because teams don't have to worry about the scramble. They just need to keep him in the pocket, and it's a sack or whatever it is.
They either blitz or they could drop 8. Like, I'm worried teams are going to start dropping 8 now because they know Cousins is not going to run. Yeah. And they could just fill whoever passing windows. And they know Cousins, at some point, he's either going to take a sack or he's going to try to thread the needle. And we saw against Pittsburgh, defense ate a ball over it. So, I want to ask, add on, I have both of your takes, but I was just curious, like, Cousins tonight. Like, I think Cousins was fine, but he's still leaving more. Like, I still want more from him. Like, there was a play I thought he could have hit London. Him and London had 2 moments where they could have connected, but I think London, for whatever reason, didn't track it right the first time. But that second one, he completely underthrew London when London had separation. So, I don't know, at this point, like tonight, what do you make of Cousins?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think he was fine. 20 for 29. It's the exact same completion percentage he had against the Eagles. He had that perfect pass to Pitts in the first half. He looked really, really good in the first half. But yeah, I'm with you on the lack of mobility. Like, it's just something where it just feels like such a big handicap in 2024. Like, this isn't 2004 or 1994, 20, 30 years ago where you can just get away with that. It's in today's NFL, you just sort of have to have, at least some sort of a threat with the quarterback. Like, he doesn't have to be Kyler Murray out there, but man, that 3rd and 2, I was screaming at the TV. I'm sure we were all screaming at the TV, like, the lane
first down marker is right there.
The lane, the first down marker is right there. You have a hole, like, everyone's covered. Just tuck it and run. And he just he looks like the most immobile quarterback in the NFL right now. And you can sort of, it's not a death sentence, but it's something where if he's not really sharp, if he's not looking really sharp in his accuracy and his decision making, in the quickness of his decision making, it's something that can really sort of hinder you because you have no room for error when it comes to passing the ball because you're not a threat at all with your legs. Apparently, you're not going to be a threat at all when it comes to the QB sneak game. So, he was fine. He was absolutely fine passing the ball, but it sort of feels like he has to be more than fine if he's going to compensate for that lack of mobility. And I know he's never been the most mobile quarterback, but he could move around a little bit before the injury. It just feels like this Achilles injury has zapped him of everything when it comes to his legs at this point.
Yeah, it definitely hurts. I think it's like, again, at this point, I think it's his confidence in his ability to move that's the problem because I think he has the mobility to pick up that first down without question, right? He just needs to be more decisive. He's playing immobile because I don't know if he doesn't trust himself. I don't know if he's afraid of what will happen if he runs, or like he's thinking about last year and is concerned. Like, I don't think Kirk is that immobile, like from a health physical standpoint. I don't think that like he's any type of mobile quarterback, but like he could have easily picked up that first down. If he decides to run a half second sooner, he gets that first down. Like, he just needs to be more decisive, and he needs to be able to run the ball. If teams are dropping 8 and you have a huge lane, you have to run the ball. You have to be able to pick up like 2 yards with your legs, or else you're just really limiting what your offense can do. And I think that it's not a physical limitation. I think it's a confidence issue for him.
I mean, it would make sense because he had that issue throwing the ball too before that touchdown to Mooney. Like, I kept talking about it on Twitter that touchdown pass to Darnell Mooney against the Eagles, the 40-yard touchdown pass, and the fourth down conversion of Ray McLeod right before that, it felt like something unlocked after that. And then you really saw Cousins start to thread the needle a little bit. You saw him, really sort of, test those windows. And then we saw what we saw on that, last drive. And that carried over into this game. And, maybe it might be a case of he just needs to sort of do it. Like, he needs to sort of get 5 or 6 yards running before he sort of feels confident in it, because the mental hurdle is just as bad as the physical hurdle when it comes to an injury like that. Even if you are a professional athlete, you're still a human.
Yeah.
Now, hopefully that happens sooner rather than later, because there needs to be something. Like
he needs to at least threaten
something. Like, there
the
needs
like
to be
3-yard pickup when they drop 8 and there's no one within the zip code. If he just like takes a step forward, it doesn't get tripped by Mike Pennell, which is exactly what happened. So
now, that being said, my laptop's about to die. I'm not in a place where I have a charger, and it's 1 a.m. So I'm gonna have to say goodnight to y'all, and I'll see you guys on the Wednesday live show.
We will see you soon, Adnan. Thanks for stopping in.
Thanks to all the 300 people who, for some reason, are still here at 1 a.m.
Still here at 1 a.m. to the diehards.
Anyone from England? Please tell me we got people from England.
We didn't get any pound donations this. We did on Wednesday. We got some pound donations on Wednesday, but
6 a.m. in England, right?
Yeah, that's 6 a.m. in England right now. So
early.
The early shift, the early shifters on a Monday morning.
Yep.
All right. Good night, guys.
Have a good
night. Yes. Well, we are. Yeah. Go ahead.
I got 2 more things, but do we want to do more listener questions, or can we hit on 2 more quick topics?
Yeah. Let me do these last 2 real quick. We got George with the $2 saying, "Asked this already. Wonder if Andy Dalton going off is good for the Falcons. The Panthers are now going to move off Bryce. Now they got to go back to the draft to try to get another quarterback. I just want them to mire in mediocrity with a Daniel Jones type quarterback. Don't let them get another Cam." I mean, Dalton's better than Bryce Young right now. So maybe that makes that game a little bit harder, but I still think like by the time the Falcons play the Panthers in week 6, like people will have figured out the Panthers are still not good. I think the Raiders got caught with
I'm prepared too.
Yeah. I think the Raiders got caught with their pants down this week a little bit. I also think the Raiders are just kind of super like not very good either. So, like great job by Dalton, like taking advantage of that Raiders team. Like the Raiders secondary is very bad. So like they just kind of carved them up. But, I think by the time the Falcons play the Panthers in a few weeks, everyone will that team will have come back down to earth after the little Dalton bounce that they're getting. But yeah, ultimately, like long-term for the Panthers, I mean, like they're going to have to get another quarterback, but that was true whether Bryce played or not. I mean, so we'll see. But in the last one from Ian McCluskey with the $5 saying, just saw a tweet from Myles Garrett where Bijan said that the infamous fourth down call was made at the line of scrimmage by Kirk Cousins. Yeah, I mean, I saw that. Like, that doesn't really bother me because I think Kirk saw the stacked box and thought that their best chance was getting it on the edge. And, like, I don't necessarily love that. I mean, I would have checked into a pass with the condensed set like that if they had, like, a tight end leak or something. Because the tight end leak against that formation is almost undefeated. But,
and Warner was there, I believe.
He was. Yeah. So, maybe they could have done something like that. Maybe that would have had more success. But, yeah, go back and watch that rep. like there's a bunch of replays out there on it. Like I don't think it would have mattered what the Falcons called. They probably would have gotten stuffed. So except like if I think if Algier actually hits his block, they have a chance to convert that.
Yeah,
I think if they run up the
yeah, 22, man.
Yeah. Like if you look, just go back and look at it. Like if they run up the middle on that rep, they probably get destroyed. Like they just everybody lost on the inside. So not that like the play call like that is like that's like part 2. Part 1 is like the play call. Part 2 is like what the outcome is. The outcome probably would have been bad no matter what. Maybe the better like play call would have been to just trust that your offensive line can get a half a yard. But yeah, we're gonna argue about that all week, I'm sure. So yeah.
I'm disappointed no one in chat has said when is Keith Smith gonna get signed this week. I'm disappointed by the no mentioned.
Yep, no Keith Smith love. Yeah. But
what
did you have? Yeah.
Look, it's 2 weeks, but there were critical moments, and he is being paid like the best guard lead. But Chris Lindstrom, pass protection, last 2 weeks, there's been some bad moments, and it's led to some crucial mistakes. The third down on Milton Williams last week. I know everyone's not big on PFF, and they gave him like a 9 grade, which I thought was absurd. But he's been getting a little bit in pass protection. Then we saw tonight the interception where Warden just overpowered him, and then there's one rep on Chris Jones where he basically just balled him in the helmet and didn't let go, and it was just like one of the most irresponsible penalties. A guy of his caliber, and he's still doing great in the run game. Like I thought he took the Carter almost on like every snap last weekend.
Took it to him.
Tonight I thought he was fine run block wise, and he was good in screens as he usually is. But it's just pass protection. Those moments when there are glaring areas like that, he's the tone setter. He's got to be better. So I don't care how you feel. Like we're not trying to like totally say, oh, we got to be concerned about him, but these are crucial plays that his mistakes are leading to.
Yeah, no, you expect more from Lindstrom. It's kind of very similar to last year where the offensive line underperformed like the first 4 games of the season, and then they like really turned it on after that. So I'm kind of wondering like if that's going to be the case again. Hopefully, like Dahlman and McGarry aren't out long term, but it was sort of like, especially like I think Dahlman and Lindstrom and McGarry really struggled to start the season, and Bergeron was struggling more. I think Bergeron was actually this might have been his best game.
Yeah, dude, Chris Jones was very quiet.
Yeah. So
really didn't have much game.
They tried to go after Bergeron in this one. I think Bergeron week 1 really got it taken to him. Last week was fine. This week I think was maybe his best game. So, I think this offense is still getting settled. It's a new offense. It's a new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, all this stuff. Like, still very much a work in progress, but you need Lindstrom to step up in those moments, no doubt.
It's just crucial plays, man. Turnovers, third downs. It's like this. We have to highlight this. So, and the last thing, man, we've been venting about bad calls, but we got to talk about one of the worst ones. Like we can't go this show without discussing this. The end of the first half, that fumble by Kirk Cousins, because you were going off about it too.
Yeah.
How do you not review that?
It's under 2 minutes. How is that? Like, all turnovers should be reviewed. I don't understand.
And it's just like, just because the Falcons, they lose the ball, but you're still penalizing Bijan. And it's just, and I just feel like in those moments, we've seen this too many times in games. Like, I feel like whoever's officiating should see the throwing motion. And like 10 yards is a big deal, because if it was incomplete, it's 3rd and 8 instead of 3rd and 18.
Yeah.
So it's just stuff like that, and it's just you're not reviewing it, and you still penalize Bijan. It's 2 minutes left. Take the time, like don't rush into things, and like that's where I kind of knew. I was like, okay, this officiating crew, we're gonna be for a long night, because I know we could pinpoint Judon was getting held at times. We didn't mention the Ray McLeod face match, which was just insane. But that one with Cousins was just like, dude, come on. Like, you're just going to totally ignore it because it was not a turnover, but still, we're talking about lost yardage here. And even if Bijan doesn't get penalized, I still feel like they lose 3, 4, 5 yards because the ball went backwards.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think they have to do better. Like, it was that play. There was an obvious, like, face mask type penalty on Ray that was missed. That I can't believe they missed that one either. I mean, like, it wasn't like he ripped his helmet off, but it was pretty clearly that he grabbed the bottom of his face mask. They didn't call that. And
What are ones I missed? Did you recognize any? I know Judon. People are talking about Judon getting held.
People have been holding the Falcons defensive line constantly. And I don't know if it's just like the NFL is trying not to call holding as much. They called that holding on Taquan Graham after that was like a half like that was a terrible call. Like, how the hell do you hold an offensive lineman for a half second when you make a tackle for loss? Like, I'm sorry, but like defensive linemen can't hold. I feel confident saying that. You know, like that they're just destroying an offensive lineman.
Really blatant.
It's got to be really egregious.
Yeah. But besides, like, you gotta really tug the shoulder pad.
Yeah, like you gotta really that has to be really bad, because otherwise those guys are not getting the benefit of the doubt most plays. So, yeah, I don't know what it is, but they have not been calling holding against the Falcons like defensive line. Like the Falcons defensive line has not gotten many calls so far. You know, so I guess it is what it is. But that's been frustrating, and yeah. And speaking of,
really angered me.
That was
like, because it's just like, these are basic fundamentals. If people like us are recognizing it, how can the professional league not recognize it? And look, every yard matters, especially in a close game like that. And I just feel like they gave it to them like that. So I had to get that off my chest, because it's just, this league's got to be better. Like, we expect more. You're just supposed to be putting out the finest product out there. So
yeah, we have to do better, and they got to stop glazing this broadcast. Also, like, Collinsworth was like giving verbal fellatio to the Chiefs for like at least a solid quarter. Like, I need you to do better. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, oh God, look at Travis Kelce. He's out there. He's a beautiful man. Oh, I love Travis Kelce. Oh yeah, look at that play. They're gonna be getting him the ball here pretty soon. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's just so beautiful when it all comes together, Alan. You know, it's just all.
How were Buck and Aikman last week? Because I didn't hear the telecast. I was at the game.
Oh, last week the Monday night broadcast. Yeah, they had Travis Kelce on for like 45 minutes. It was terrible.
I forgot.
Or Jason. Yeah, they had Jason Kelce on the broadcast for like 45 minutes, and he was like, "Woo, go Birds, go Birds!" Like on the national broadcast, like this was happening. So
Falcons in primetime was supposed to be a good thing. Clearly not. And we get to hear Al Michaels and his total unenthusiasm in a couple of weeks. I think Al Michaels has really fallen off. I know we're just talking about random stuff. We'll end soon, but yeah, the primetime crews, we gotta step it up.
Yeah. No, I thought Tirico was like trying his best to keep Collinsworth on task, and it was just like not working. So it just was not working. So like, shout out to Tirico for trying to like keep this on the rails, and it was just not. It was not. But we get one final donation here from Harry Hotep with the $5 saying, "Refs hoed us and we just have to take it." Yep. Yeah, I guess that's kind of how it is, unfortunately. Yeah. He says, I think AK and Lorenzo Carter are non-factors, but we're 1-2, but I still have a lot of confidence in this team. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the ultimate takeaway. I think he should get
more reps. No? He had that one moment. I was like, whoa, where was that been?
I mean, like, Ebiketie on passing downs has been pretty good. On running downs, it's been the opposite. But yeah, I mean, on passing downs, it's been pretty good. So, really anything. I mean, I feel like Lorenzo Carter is just kind of like the definition of like average starter. Just kind of like goes out there, occupies a block, doesn't really like make a negative play or a positive play. It's just kind of like the perfect like mid-level player right
Brooks
now.
Reed?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Brooks Reed at least executed like a spin move every now and then, but yeah.
That's true. I love that too.
And he had that beautiful hair.
Like 2018 Brooks Reed, not 2016.
Yeah. And he had that hair. I feel like the hair got him at least like a little bit of a boost, but yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna need a little more from Lorenzo Carter. If you're gonna wear 0, I'm gonna need you to play better. So yeah. That's how I feel about that. But yeah.
To wrap it all up, I still feel like there's a lot to be encouraged about, but officiating, some play calling, Cousins, there's defensive line, of course. There's still enough disappointment there that it's just like, But I still feel like we have a lot to be encouraged about. So I guess that's I think Corey summed up really good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's totally fine to be disappointed in this game. The Falcons really should have. I think they got robbed. You should be frustrated at the officiating. They should have had an opportunity from the 1 yard line. Does that mean they win the game? Not necessarily, but I think they should have had the opportunity to play it out. frustrating end. Falcons were in this game. They showed that they belonged on the field with the Chiefs. Like, if this had been like a Super Bowl game, that would have been disappointing, right? Because you would expect better offensive play from the Falcons. But, like, they held up against the defending champs, and, really gave him a tough game and took it down to the wire. So, this team, I think, is legit, especially the defense. I think this was the first real test for this defense this season. I mean, Philly was a test for the run defense, and the run defense gave up a lot of yards, but they managed to keep the game in check. And this was more of a test for the pass defense. And I think that plays into the run game being successful for the Chiefs. I think the Falcons were just not that afraid of the Chiefs run game. And they were like, yeah, we'll let Carson Steele get like 5 yards. We don't care. Like, we're just not going to let Patrick Mahomes beat us. And they didn't let Patrick Mahomes beat him. Patrick Mahomes' yards per attempt was pretty sad. I think it was extremely low. And I think the Falcons defense did everything they could in this one. Just wasn't quite good enough, unfortunately, because the offense just isn't all the way there yet. I think they got a ways to go still. I think this offense is working at like 50% of its power. Now the good news is that if they can get to 75% of their power, they're probably scoring like 25 points a game, and that's probably pretty good. I'm not sure they can get to 100% of their power, especially with 2 offensive linemen down. We'll see how long those guys are going to be out, but I think that this team is like legit, especially in the NFC. The NFC looks extremely weak right now. The 49ers are not looking hot. The Eagles, the Falcons just beat. The Vikings might be the best team in the NFC somehow. We got a long way to go, but like both the NFC South undefeated teams lost today. The Falcons are 1 game back. Obviously, if they beat the Saints tomorrow, or not tomorrow, that would be way too much. I can't handle a game tomorrow. Please wait until next weekend to have that game. But like if they go and beat the Saints next weekend, they're going to be potentially tied for the division lead, depending on what happens with the Bucs. They're going to have a chance to get out to a big division lead over the next 3 weeks. If they can sweep those games up, then we're all good. And if they can't, then we're going to be having more conversations. But everything's in front of this team right now. Like, they have an opportunity over the next 3 weeks to build a dominant lead in this division by handing losses to each of their biggest rivals. And if they can do that, if they can win the next 3 games, then we're going to be flying high at 4-2 with a 3-0 division record. And everything will be peachy. And no one will care that they lost to the Chiefs. So.
And right after that, very exciting matchup against Seattle. And I know Seattle's had a very favorable schedule so far, but that Seattle team has talent. I think that'd be a very fun matchup. So
yeah,
that's something to look forward to on the horizon. Because, hey, folks, we all love the favorable schedule, but Falcons really don't play too much. There's not too many appealing games in November, December. Like, obviously, it's very favorable and they should win, but those games don't necessarily get you excited. Like tonight, I was going to beyond amped up. I was like, oh, this is going to be fun. You look at the games in November, December, it's like, oh, all right, well, they should take care of business. So that's how it is.
I agree. So, at a certain point, I just want them to win games. So, let's win the next 3, and then I can complain about the games not being good enough. I feel like I'm at that point where I'm like, I just want to see them win. I don't really care if it's easy. Like, it might be nice if we get some like layups here.
The Commanders, Lions.
Yep. We got some potential layups, and I mean I think that they've survived the brutal first 3 games of this schedule. Like, I know the Steelers, like, people are like, oh, the Steelers offense not that great, whatever. The Steelers are 3-0. Like, they've had a cupcake schedule. Don't get me wrong, but like, that Steelers defense is winning those games by itself. Like, it is probably the best defense. Yeah, that's probably the best defense in the NFL. And like, that was the worst possible draw for this new offense in Week 1, and it looked like it. And the Falcons still had a chance to win at the end of that game. They just couldn't get it done. So
Falcons got a coach. Steelers did their thing. So you gotta give credit where it's due. That's
probably like the most boring 3-0 team of all time, but they are still 3-0. So. Now, it doesn't look as bad that they lost to those guys. So, but yeah, Alan, thanks so much for coming on. Really appreciate you. Folks, thank you for watching. Thanks for hanging out with us here far into the early morning hours here on Monday. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. That really helps us out. Leave us that 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. You can check out the Patreon. You can check out the YouTube channel memberships if you want to support the show. Really appreciate that. We'll be back early next week. Dre, Sean, and I will have an early week show of some kind. we're still thinking of a name, but Trayshawn's going to be doing that early week show with me going forward. We've really enjoyed his contributions so far, so I want to make sure to get him on here as much as we can. And we'll be back, of course, for live on Wednesday as well. Yeah, Alan, anything else you want to add tonight before we sign off?
No, we're just going to have a lot coming this week. After a game like this, there's going to be plenty to write about, plenty to talk about, so just check it out.
Yeah, definitely hit the Falcoholic.com for that written content. We got all kinds of stuff coming your way on the written side. I think there's been like at least 2 or 3 articles published about this game already since we've started talking on this podcast. So definitely check that out. Yeah, guys, I'm Kevin. I have Falcoholic Kevin. You can check me out there on the Twitter, X's, whatever. And yeah, check out thefalcoholic.com. We'll be back, of course, on Wednesday for the next Falcoholic Live, and we'll be back earlier than that with our next podcast. So tune in for that as we get into Hate Week. Excited for that. Saints came right back down to earth this week. Kind of got their pants pulled down by the Eagles a little bit. Thankfully, the Eagles did not choke that game away. I thought they were going to get the Falcons pulled on them again. But they actually did the Falcons to the Saints. I think that was like they like scored within the last 2 minutes and then intercepted the Saints quarterback. So they kind of got the like revenge version of that. So thank you, Eagles, for that. Shout out to the Broncos also for taking down the Bucs to make sure the Falcons are just a game behind after a truly brutal opening schedule. So yeah, exciting stuff. We got a long way to go here in this season, just 3 weeks in. I feel exhausted already, but in a good way. Like this team is actually playing relevant football. So it feels more like real than last year. I feel like last year they were like 2-1, but it was kind of like,
we're pulling straws.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. It was like miraculous. Like, yeah, there was like a miraculous comeback, but it feels
Ritter had like
somehow
4 turnover-worthy plays.
Yeah, it somehow feels a little bit more legit. You know, doing it like losing a close game to the Chiefs feels a little bit more legit. So
yeah, it's not as bad as getting humbled by the Lions and Jaguars in very definitive losses.
Yep, we'll hope that it goes better than that next week than it did last year. But thanks again, guys, for tuning in. We really appreciate you. Have a great night. Enjoy. Well, I guess there is no more Sunday night, so get some sleep for probably going to work. Yeah. Go ahead and start making that breakfast or whatever it is you're doing. Thanks again, guys, for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Falcoholic Live.